What fact sounds legit but is actually fake? The first video ever uploaded to YouTube had to be taken down in 2016 for violating their terms of service. If you tell me, I won't get mad. I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed, they're also mad. That popping, crunching joints on your hands will give you arthritis. It's not true. I read that it's not your muscle, bone cracking, but just air escaping. It's the synovial fluid being moved around the joint and displacing gas bubbles. Which is why you can't pop the same knuckle twice in a row very easily. You have to wait for the gas to move back into the joint to be able to displace it again. Always wait 24 hours before reporting a missing person. This can actually be quite dangerous. Hair grows back stronger after being razored off. I was told this for so long. A 12-year-old has the sense to see that the stubble that occurs after shaving just feels and looks more coarse because of the blunt ends. And I was taught this by every female role model like it was the gospel truth. Your eyes don't grow. They do actually grow, but they grow very slowly, like really slowly. By the time Grandpa turned 90, he had eyes in the back of his head. Carbon monoxide is heavier than air, so put your detectors close to the floor. The first people to die of CO poisoning are the ones lying down. Reality, CO is about the same density as air, in fact it is actually slightly lighter than air, so it doesn't matter where you put your detectors. This myth likely started because CO fatalities are most likely to occur while people are sleeping because they are not aware of the symptoms of poisoning, i.e. dizziness, nausea, etc., versus those who are awake. Also might come from animals being affected first, or little kids. It's not actually because they're closer to the ground, it's because they're smaller, should be obvious, but might feed the myth. If a baby bird falls out of a tree, touching it will make it smell human and cause the mum to abandon it. Not true. I've heard this is the same for a few animals like rabbits. Is it a false statement for all animals? The problem is that some birds and most rabbits just aren't great parents. It might not be because of smell or any one thing, but doesn't take a whole lot to spook a mother rabbit or bird away from their nest long enough to kill the babies. It's a quantity versus quality issue. Rabbits and deer will also only visit the nest twice per day, to avoid attracting predators to the nest. So it may look abandoned, but unless it's been 24 hours with no sign of a parent, you're probably just babysitting for them. Myth: 3 Americans every year die from rabies. Fact: 4 Americans every year die from rabies. We only use 10% of our brains. I know people in this forum that use far less than that. If you tell me the truth you won't get in trouble, a cop, to 16-year-old me. Cops do this tactic to a lot of people. Or the classic, just write an apology letter. Suddenly they have a written confession. Lightning never strikes twice in the same place. As disproven by skyscrapers. Roman people would use bird poop to dye their hair. True. The birds used to produce the poop were actually somewhat expensive to keep, it wasn't just random chickens. It got so popular that opportunistic people would mix together things that looked like the bird poop to sell, and ended up using fats for texture and consistency and lye for color. This counterfeit poop ended up being more popular in the long run thanks to its cleaning effects. Hence, shampoo. You eat 8 spiders per year while sleeping or whatever. Average person eats 8 spiders a year. Factoid: actually just statistical error. Average person eats 0 spiders per year. Spiders. Georg, who lives in cave and eats over 10,000 each day, is an outlier and should not have been counted. For one person to single-handedly bring the average up by 8, they would need to eat 165 million spiders a day, that is 1910 spiders a second, with no breaks. Black holes suck in everything. If a black hole of the same mass replaced our sun, we'd still go around it as if nothing happened. Well, we'd all be frozen to death, but let's ignore that. Caffeine stunts your growth. It's been scientifically proven that an average dose of caffeine has no effect on your height. Caffeine does not affect growth hormones unless it is in absurd amounts. Like 35 cups of straight caffeine, not 2 cups of coffee and a Mountain Dew. NASA spent millions of dollars on a pen that could work in space, while the Russians just used a pencil. They didn't spend the money developing the pen, Fisher did, and then approached NASA. Also, they wanted a pen instead of a pencil so there was less chance of graphite breaking off and getting into the electronics. Coconuts have hair and produce milk, therefore coconuts are mammals. So are they birds? It could explain their migration habits. Eating carrots improves your eyesight. This nugget of false wisdom originates with World War II Allied propaganda and its efforts to conceal a technology from the Nazis. One of the ways the British defended against bombing raids was by holding blackouts to make it harder for incoming planes to find their targets. At the same time, the Allies were curiously good at shooting down German planes despite the blackouts. This needed a cover story because it's incoming pun warning, blindingly obvious that small mobile aircraft are slightly harder targets at than large stationary factories and cities. Hence the explanation that defensive gunners were supplied with a diet high in vitamin A to promote good night vision. Hence carrots. It's true that vitamin A deficiency can contribute to vision loss. The public garbled this into a notion that excess vitamin A intake imparts supervision. Actually, what adequate vitamin A mostly does is prevent the cornea from excessive dryness, which can be one cause of clouded vision. The myth about carrots persisted in popular culture long after radar stopped being a classified technology. The US $2 bill is no longer printed for circulation and as such has been hoarded by collectors. Because it's been hoarded, it's extremely valuable. $2 bills are still being printed, though none will be printed in 2020 because there is enough supply of them to meet what little demand there is. Since they are hoarded by collectors, and money collectors are really the only people who want multiple $2 bills, there is almost no extra value in them. Basically, anyone who wants $2 bills has a stockpile of them already, and anyone who wants one and doesn't have one can easily get one from a collector or even your local bank. Since no extra value exists in them over their $2 face value, many hoarders are willing to part with a bill or two. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Not true. To miss is to have taken a shot. If I never shoot, I never miss. On the U.S. interstate system, it was designed so that at least 1 mile in every 5 miles was straight so that it could be used as a runway by the military in case of war. This was done to appease certain politicians that opposed the massive spending on the interstate project. That being cold makes you sick. Edit. To clarify, I was referring to the idea that being a little cold directly makes your body sick. I was also thinking about the myth that wearing a coat will suddenly drastically lower your chances of illness. I understand cold temperatures allow certain viruses to spread quicker, but that puffy jacket won't slow them down. Websites that appear at the top of the search results that aren't sponsored listings earned their way to the top. As someone who is hired to help get clients to the top of Google's search results, and it's something I've been doing successfully for 20 years, this is definitely not the case. There are many firms and individuals whose job is to influence those rankings to get the websites we want at the top of the results. Astronomer here. Stars that don't twinkle are planets. Twinkling has to do with the stability of the atmosphere more than anything else. That's why even stars will look rock steady on a cold, clear night on a mountaintop. Little air movement going on compared to a muggy night in the city. Now planets, the argument goes, are not point sources due to their distance and not as susceptible to bad seeing due to the atmosphere we legit call atmospheric transparency that in astronomy. However, if you look into it, only Venus and Jupiter are big, close enough to be bigger than point sources from Earth, so you'll never be able to figure out if it's, say, Saturn from this method. Second, I see Venus and Jupiter twinkle all the time. Venus often twinkles because you usually see it near the horizon, so more atmosphere for the light to go through, and these days most of us live in cities with bad seeing, so you'll see Jupiter twinkle just like a star. So TLDR, while planets don't twinkle may work for Jupiter and Venus under good conditions, it's really more an exception over the rule for most of our lives. To end on a positive note, Venus is really bright right now at sunset if you want to see a planet. Go out a half hour after sunset and it's the bright star in the west. Make a note on if it twinkles or not, smiley face. The common misconception that toilet seats are very dirty is surprisingly false. According to the University of Arizona, found them to in fact be relatively clean, thanks to the fact that they are often disinfected or washed. In fact, they were found to have 10 times fewer germs than cell phones. You can spot target fat loss depending on what body part you focus on when working out. You need to exercise to lose weight. Excess body fat is genetic and not a result of overeating. There can be conditions that will make you maintain weight even if you don't eat more calories than your body needs to function. Metabolism varies so much that there are some people who can eat 6,000 calories a day and not gain a pound, and people who eat 800 calories a day and still gain weight. Starvation mode, basically lots of fat logic. Edit, getting lots of fat logic in the replies. The idea that fat can magically materialize from nothing, and not from excess calories you are ingesting, is to say that the laws of physics aren't real. Don't wear that look.